Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities through conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my absolute pleasure to have as my guest Dawn Airhart Witte. Dawn is an award-winning author, speaker, humanitarian, and the founder of the Desire to Inspire Foundation, a global nonprofit dedicated to uplifting communities through both humanitarian support and heart-centered connection. Through her work in Africa and beyond, Dawn has helped bring clean water, resources, and hope to those in need, while also addressing the deeper human need for love, unity, and belonging. She is the creator of The Secrets of Being, a platform devoted to helping individuals reconnect with their true selves, release limiting beliefs, and live with purpose, authenticity, and compassion. Dawn is also the host of the Secrets of Being podcast, where she brings together thought leaders, healers, and visionaries to share wisdom that uplifts and inspires. Her work is rooted in the belief that we are all interconnected, often expressed through the African philosophy of Ubuntu, I am because we are, and the Zulu greeting, sawubona, I see you, you are valued. Dawn's mission is to help every soul feel seen, loved, and inspired to be the change that they wish to see in the world. Dawn, welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while now.
Thank you so much, David. It's an honor to be here, and I always love speaking with you.
We were introduced quite serendipitously by your daughter from another mother, Portia Booker. Portia I met her through pure serendipity. I reached out to her after she did a podcast because I liked the word that she used, transition, to refer to, I believe it was a transition of her mom at that time. And so I reached out to her, and I loved her energy, and, we connected. I was on her podcast, she was on mine, and we'd become great friends and supporters of each other's work. And she introduced me to you, and we had a great conversation, and we've had a couple since then, but now we find ourselves doing my podcast shortly after I did yours.
Yes. It's an honor. And, when you were saying that about Portia, it gave me goosebumps because I feel like so many things we think are coincidences or accidents, but serendipity is the perfect word. It was meant to be. And once you start believing in that, you see that happening over and over in your life.
Well, and the people that have come into my life have not come into my life by chance. It's been pure serendipity. I believe our souls have contracted to kind of meet when we met. There was a specific purpose in meeting when we did. And, I've learned that I have not only a DNA family, but I have more so of a soul family. And I know you're part of it, Portia's part of it, as well as a lot of other very just heart-centered individuals that have come into my path.
And once you start speaking your true, authentic self and sharing that, you will find more and more of those people come into your life.
Yeah. I mean, when we start manifesting, wanting individuals of higher thought, wanting individuals of like-minded values, once we visualize that and manifest that, it happens, as long as we're putting in the effort to make that happen.
I want to say we are always manifesting things into our life, but sometimes it's not intentional. So we're always bringing in things to our life based on the energy we're putting out. So it's when you're intentional about it and you're aware of it, then more and more of the magical things start happening and you can see them.
Because you open yourself up to awareness and walking in awareness. And I think once we realize that the physical world is not the only world that we interact with, and that we live in a multidimensional universe, it just opens us up to more of the possibilities of living, more of the possibilities of we look at potential rather than limitation.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And my own life has been an experience. Back in my 20s, I didn't really understand any of that. But as I go through life, I keep seeing more and more of it and have more and more experiences where I'm like, oh, that wasn't just a coincidence. That wasn't an accident. And so I'm very woo woo and very spiritual because of the experiences that I've had.
Well, and we talk kiddingly about being woo woo, but the science supports that.
Yeah.
And my philosophy over the years, because of my own challenges and because of my own desire and the support I've had to rethink my perspective and to reevaluate and expand my belief systems, I believe that there's a place for science, there's a place for non-evidentiary-based practices, there's a place for holistic methods, there's a place for spiritual practices. All of that can come together to increase our understanding of self and the world around us.
We are souls having a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't disconnect ourselves from that spiritual. Everybody calls it maybe something different, but it exists. And again, I've had too many experiences to discount it anymore.
There's a point where you don't question whether or not the quote unquote woo-woo experiences we have are real. But once we've opened ourselves up to it, we just don't question it anymore.
Yeah. And then you start seeing it more and more and more in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magical.
Absolutely. You have had quite an interesting background. I know you just didn't evolve to the secrets of being platform in the podcast. I know there were probably challenges along the way and experiences along the way. So whatever you're comfortable with sharing, what are some of those experiences that have shaped who Dawn Witte is today?
Well, so my mom is an Indian woman. My dad was a German man. And so I grew up in a small town in Ohio. I was like a mix. I wasn't white. I wasn't Indian. I didn't have any religion. So I never really felt like I belonged. Like I couldn't claim any one identity. And I was the oldest. So there was a lot of stuff that happened when I was little. I didn't feel like I was cherished or loved, or I didn't feel like I was special or that I mattered. And then I had this experience when I was 10. My appendix ruptured. I was in the hospital for 10 days, I think. And for a 10-year-old, that's a long time to be in the hospital.
Mm.
And the hospital food was icky. And there's this one candy striper. Her name is Debbie. And Debbie would come in and she would like take my food away. And she'd be like, honey, you have to eat. And she was only 16. She was a young girl. And I said, oh, this food is icky. And so one day on her own, she brought me pizza because I told her I loved pizza. And that made me feel seen. It made me feel valued. It made me feel important. And so I've made it my mission to always make every soul I encounter to feel seen, valued, and important. And that's why when I heard that word sawubona, I was like, whoa, that's like the best word to acknowledge that somebody else matters. And because somebody did that for me, I want to do that for everybody. And so I've volunteered as court-appointed special advocate in the LA foster care system. I was a volunteer at 5 Acres Therapeutic School. I was a big sister. When my girls were growing up, wasn't going to fly to Africa when my girls were growing up, but I did work here with children that may not feel seen and valued. And so then when they were in college, I had this opportunity to go to Africa and I took it. And that was the first time I think in my whole life that I wasn't somebody's daughter. I wasn't somebody's wife. I wasn't somebody's mother. And that was very powerful. And so I get to go and share that, let these children know you matter. You have something special within you that only you can bring to this world. And if I'm the only person that tells them that, I want to plant those seeds with them. So that's my mission and journey.
And that's, it's amazing when we don't feel seen. That's probably the worst possible feeling because it's like, we could even question if not being seen becomes a repetitive pattern, we can question whether or not we even exist. We can disenfranchise ourselves for crying out loud. Do I really exist? Do I really matter? It's like the sibling who's experienced the death of a brother or sister, and everybody's concerned about the parents, and rightfully so. But it's the siblings had their own unique relationship with their brother and sister. So it's like, what about them? And then they begin to question, well, why am I not being seen? Why is my grief not being acknowledged? Do I even have a right to grieve the loss of my brother or sister? Now it's all becomes a result of just not being seen or not being acknowledged. And even in, my teaching career, I try to make sure that every student is valued. I try to remember everybody by name. I try to take an interest in what's going on in their lives to the extent that they'll let me, and just take an interest with them as a person so that they feel seen. Because a lot of our young adults today don't feel seen.
I think that's the greatest gift we can give anybody. And I do that for everybody, whether it's a squirrel or a dog or a child or an adult. But one of the reasons I love working with children is you can plant those seeds, because if you carry that into adulthood, then you have to peel away a lot of hurt, a lot of, problems that come with not feeling like you matter, or that what you have to bring to the world makes a difference. But if you plant those seeds early, then maybe there's not going to be as much peeling away that you need to do when they get to be adults.
No, absolutely. And we can plant seeds at any time, and it may take longer for some to germinate than others, but as long as those seeds are planted, they have an opportunity to grow, given the right circumstances.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, the Desire to Inspire Foundation, was that an outcome of your work in Africa? Does that support your work in Africa? Tell us more about that.
So I actually started it before I went to Africa. And the reason I started it was when we are bombarded by negative news. You turn on the news, there's negative story after negative story. Maybe there's a human interest story at the very end for 2 minutes. But so we're constantly being shown the world is bad, it's scary, and, be afraid. And I was thinking, I know people who are rescuing dogs, people who are helping unwed mothers, people who are helping people that are in hospital and having cancer treatment. And they're doing this out of their heart. That's their mission, their purpose. And I thought, I want to share those stories because to counteract the negativity that's constantly surrounding us.
Mhm.
And then I went to Africa for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, talk about inspiration. Here are people who don't even know how they might be feeding themselves, yet they will take in an orphan child or 67 orphan children, and it's a struggle to feed themselves. And they could have said, oh, I'm just going to take care of me. I'm just going to worry about me. But their hearts are still big. And I wanted to share those stories with others and also help them with the physical resources that they need. So that's kind of how that all started. I had always wanted to go when I was in high school. I wanted to go into the Peace Corps. But society's telling you, my parents are telling me, everybody's saying, no, you've got to go to college. You've got to get your college degree. So going into the Peace Corps was not something that I considered a feasible thing to do. And then shortly thereafter, I got married, had my kids. And again, I'm not leaving my kids to go to a different continent and love other people's children. So it was when my daughters graduated from college, is when I went for the first time. But it was always a call to my heart.
Any particular reason why Africa was calling to you as opposed to any other country?
You know what? I have gone on shamanic journeys. I've done meditation. I have done past life regression, because I always want to say, why Africa? Because I'm half Indian. That if I was called to India, that would make sense, like my heritage, but I still, every time I get the answer I get is the children. And I literally was cleaning up the memory on my phone, and I came across a video that somebody had taken of me the last time I was in Uganda, speaking to a large school of girls. And I was telling them this story because I was in parliament in Uganda. And this is how crazy my life is. I went to Africa the first time. I didn't know anybody. And I went to Ghana the first time. And after that, I wanted to go back. And so the next time I went to Ghana, Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya. And then the next time I added Sierra Leone to that. But when I was there the last time, I was like, I'm just this crazy lady who said, I'm going to go to Africa. And here I am a few years later sitting in Uganda parliament. How crazy is that? And then I remember looking around the room going, you don't look like anybody here. Like you really don't look like anybody here. And it doesn't usually hit me, but then it did. And so the next morning we had to wake up early. We were driving somewhere. I fell asleep in the van. It was a 6-hour drive. And we were driving past Parliament, and I said to God, I said, you don't have to tell me in this lifetime, but maybe I will never understand. But why Africa? Like, why do I feel so strong, so drawn and called here? And I had this dream, and I heard a little girl say she was looking for us. And I'm like, you know what? That's the only answer I need.
You were needed there,
Yeah.
and you still are needed there.
And I think I need them as much as they need me.
Yeah. I mean, the desire to inspire, I think, works both ways. We want to inspire others, but we also want to be inspired by others because that keeps us going. It gives us meaning when we are filled, our hearts are filled by other people's stories, other children's stories. Um, you can't not be not inspired. And people ask me, well, how can you sit and do bereavement support? How can you teach a death, dying, and bereavement course? Like, well, how can I not? Um, because you sit with individuals who are grieving and you sit through the not so pretty stuff. And there's a lot of not so pretty stuff about grief. It's a very raw journey. It's a very up and down journey. It's a nonlinear journey. But when individuals make a decision to re-engage in life again, when they make a decision to renew in life again with purpose, you've been there on the other side to witness that growth. There's no greater gift than that. And for me, it's like, how could I not get inspired by that?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
could,
It's something that we're all going to experience. So sitting with people in their darkest moments is it's a beautiful gift to give.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gifts in the darkness if we open ourselves up to that. I think more so than in the light, because the darkness is where we do our true work. The darkness is where we do our true spiritual awakening. And the darkness involves looking at a lot of stuff about ourselves that may not be so pleasant, but it's necessary if we're going to continue to grow.
Well, seeds grow in the darkness. They have to be planted. So I think the same goes for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean, how far reaching now is the Desire to Inspire Foundation? What are some of the other things that you do with that? And how far reaching is it across the globe?
Well, so I'm mostly centered in Africa right now, but I'm working on something. It's called the Ubuntu Creator Circle, and it's not quite ready yet. But what I want to do is, instead of just sending money to cover food expenses and things like that, I want to offer an opportunity for people to be able to use their gifts, skills, and talents. Help me design. I'll pay you for this design instead of just giving you money. Let me compensate you by sharing your gifts, skills, and talents so that you can. When I wrote my first book, I remember thinking, I did this. Like, nobody could give you that sense of accomplishment. I want them to experience that too. And so we're going to create merchandise so that they can get their work out into the world, get compensated for it. And then that also helps me support the work of the foundation. I haven't been able to build the center that I want to build. We've bought the property, we've got the foundation laid, but it's not up and running the way I want it. But that's going to come. I always say it's God's time, not my time. Right. And even though I wanted it done, years ago, I just have to say, you know what, hold the vision, trust the process.
Yeah, as I've always mentioned, we're on Spirit Central Time anyway.
I love when you say that. I love that. It's
Yeah,
true.
well, I mean, where spirit is, there's no clock. It's just time is in its own time.
Yes. And I have
So
to keep reminding myself of that all of the time.
that's part of, I think, being spiritual beings living a human experience. Is the human experience kind of comes to the forefront. We want to have things kind of quicker than spirit deems it.
Mhm.
But when I tried to force the issue, the universe has looked back at me with deafening silence, as if to say, don't push it. Trust the process, like you said. Trust that in its own time, it's going to manifest the way it needs to. But a lot of times, our own human experiences, a lot of what we experienced growing up, a lot of what we've experienced in later adulthood, maybe with failed relationships or anything else, that caused us concern. It makes it real difficult sometimes to be patient and to question and to not trust, because those experiences in the human experience with failed relationships and the others that I had mentioned don't lend itself to unconditional trust very easily.
And that's why these conversations are so important, because we are being programmed from the time, and I'm not saying that in negative or positive, but we are being conditioned and programmed from the time we're in the womb, our whole lives. And
Yep.
so the outside world, external world is telling us, X, Y, and Z, but that's not how it works. And so having these conversations, maybe it gives somebody some hope, saying, okay, maybe I'm being too hard on myself. Maybe I have to trust the process. It's going to unfold the way it's supposed to unfold. And I see this meme all the time. I love it so much. It's like, my plan is one flower. and there's God's plan. It's like this whole garden, right? So sometimes we think we want something in some certain way, but then when it happens in a different way, it's way better than what our human mind could have even imagined. So I was just having a conversation with a friend the other day about this very thing. It's like, I'm in flow right now. I'm trusting what's showing up and I'm going with that. And I'm not forcing anything.
Yeah, I think the more we force, the more pushback we get back. Silent pushback, but we get pushback.
And then our experience is out of alignment. And then we're unhappy, we're mad, we're sad, and that if you just again, go with the flow, let things unfold the way they're supposed to, your journey is so much more peaceful and happy.
Yeah. Well, because then you can focus on what's immediately in front of you, which is what we only have control over. You can focus on the joy of being in the present, but at the same time while honoring your past. And but you can do that unencumbered without worrying about what's going to happen in the future.
Right. It's total surrender. Just surrender to the divine. Doesn't mean don't take action steps. Doesn't mean you don't have a goal or a vision for your life. But it means allow things to unfold the way that they are unfolding and believe that is working out for your highest and greatest good.
Absolutely. And, just to get back, you mentioned when I asked you about what drew you to Africa, and you had gone through a variety of meditations, past life regressions. For me, I'm half Middle Eastern. I'm half Lebanese. And I've been very attracted to Native American culture. I know we've talked about this, especially with the teachings of animals and nature. So, I've always asked myself, how can a guy of half of Middle Eastern descent be attracted to an indigenous culture?
Ooh,
But and it turns out it's interesting. I worked with somebody who opened up my Akashic records, and for those of my listeners and your listeners who don't know what the Akashic records are, they are records of the soul. Those are, I think, the soul's record of every physical incarnation we've ever had. So when you hear the expression "old soul," you can kind of that's really what that means. An old soul means that their soul has lived many, 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 many years, centuries almost, in the physical existence. But she goes, you can ask me any question you want. So I said, have you ever seen where I've walked in Native American times? And she said, yes, I have. And she gave me that information. I got goosebumps. But I've also talked to other individuals who are very intuitive and have read the Akashic records and said, yeah, you've walked as a Native American in different incarnations of your soul, which when I was introduced to Jamie Sams and Ted Andrews' teachings of animals and nature, is like I had remembered. It was like a very natural fit for me, even though up until, it was 2010, I was exposed to that. Up until then, Don, I'd never been exposed to that. I'd never been exposed to Native American culture. But once I was exposed to that, I was like, geez, it was like I remembered, and it was like a natural fit for me.
That's how I feel about Africa. So when you said that, it gave me goosebumps because I understand that the questioning, it doesn't make sense, but I know there's something here. Because why has it always been there? Again, in high school, why have I always felt so? And then going there, I feel like I belong. I absolutely love it. And, I've talked to people so often about, I grew up in the United States my whole life. I live in California. I have since 1987, but I grew up in Ohio. And different places in the country, you get different experiences. But I find here that, we walk past each other. People are looking down at the ground. They're looking at the phone. In Africa, everybody says, hi, good morning. How are you? They're so much more connected. So while I'm helping them with the resources to get to where they need to be, I'm going to bring back that Ubuntu, sawubona, that love for each other, that connection that we are missing, because I feel like, with the suicide rates and depression rates and all the things that we have in the Western world, we're missing that connection to each other.
Yeah. And I mean, we can't operate in a vacuum. If we're going to get through the inevitable challenges that are going to confront us in our lifetime, we need community. And it isn't just a homogeneous community. We need a diverse community, a diversity of thought, diversity of ethnicity, diversity of culture. All of that are going to, if we allow ourselves to embrace those differences and embrace those things that we don't have, are going to allow us to grow and allow us to really rebuild the foundations that we need to rebuild when we go through challenges. I'm not a builder. I mean, I build a really good club sandwich, Don, but beyond that, I don't build anything. I can't build anything that resembles any type of structure. But one of the things that I'd use this analogy is that when you initially build a house, you use let's say you built a house 10 years ago, you're going to use materials for the foundation that are equipped for that time period. But in 20 years, when that foundation needs to be rebuilt, are you going to use the same materials you did 10 years ago? Probably not, because those materials are now dated. So you have to build a foundation 20 years 20 years later, you have to use materials that are going to make that foundation strong. It's the same with anything. I think when we go through any kind of challenge, we rebuild our foundation, the values and the attitudes and the beliefs that constituted our basic foundational living now need to be restructured. For me, and you know the story, obviously, with the transition of my daughter, had not chosen to rebuild my foundation to reflect the attitudes, the beliefs, perspectives that I needed to embrace to help me get through it, I would have crumbled a long time ago. So the foundations that we rebuild as a result of our challenges look much different than they have to, because if they don't, it means we haven't grown. We haven't moved through. We haven't transcended.
Yeah, and they become stronger foundations.
Mm-hmm. And more resilient.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. And when you were saying diversity of, different things, I want to include diversity of species too, because what I've learned from I've had 17 dogs, 23 cats, bunnies, squirrels. I've had all kinds of animals, but they teach us so much. Animals are great teachers.
And one of the first, when we started talking, I recognized your love for animals. And of course, you had, quite the chorus in the background as well, too, and quite the activity in the background. But yeah, I mean, animals have a spirit all of their own. They are very energy sensitive. They can give us unconditional love, and they are our greatest teachers. And in Native American cultures, they attach specific meanings to specific animals. And you'll hear things like the bear clan, the wolf clan. So, and they believe that, animals have a spirit, they need to be revered, and they are very grateful for what they represent and also for what they give them.
I see this meme all the time, and I don't think it's actually funny, because it says, if you ever hear that I was killed by a mountain lion, just know my last words were, "Here, kitty, kitty." I just have that. There was a coyote in my front yard the other day, well, a couple months ago, but would have gone out. I probably wouldn't have pet it, but I would have gone out. But it was really close to the street, and I didn't want to scare it to the street, so I didn't. But every desire in my being was friend.
If you look at the interconnectedness of everybody, you're right. We have to include our four-legged friends.
Yeah.
My cats taught me more about life than, taught me more about humanity than humans could have taught me. And, particularly two of my daughter's cats who transitioned after her, they represented a part of her, obviously, that we shared when she was alive. But one of her older cats, Bootsy, became my major companion. It was her cat, became my cat after she transitioned. And he provided me with so much love and I guess the motivation to get out of bed. And when he transitioned, I was grief-stricken. I mean, it was a blow. Not because of the association with my daughter, but secondly, what he meant to me is that he was in my support circle of individuals and animals, and he was the one animal in my support group who helped me find meaning again.
Well, you probably helped him with his grief too, because he lost your daughter too, and animals grieve, just like we do.
You're right. We had a prayer card of Janine on the refrigerator. And what he would do is he would go and scratch at the refrigerator, claw at her picture, and start meowing, which told me that.
I'm going to cry.
Yeah, which told me that he saw her. And when he transitioned, he did the same thing. When he was just at the moment that he was about ready to transition after he was given the sedative to put him to sleep, he started moving to the front of the table. He started looking up in the sky. And I really thought, he sees my daughter, and then my daughter was the first one waiting for him. And that gave me a lot of peace amidst the sadness. And I still tear up, I still get emotional when I talk about that. But, that's the other thing too. The animals can be our conduit to a multidimensional universe because they are so energy sensitive. And they can show us things that maybe humans can't, but we also have to be open to what they show us.
I've had so many experiences that I need animals like I need air. Like that's how much like I love them. And so I've been blessed by every animal that has been part of my life.
Hey, as I told you before, for the YouTube version of the podcast, if one of your animals wants to make an appearance, that's fine. And like I told you before, they might have some better questions for me than I got.
Oh no, they'll just ask for treat.
Well, that's okay too. That's okay too. We want to appeal to families and pet owners and everybody else. So, why not have a few pets as part of the podcast? So you have a lot of stuff going on. The secrets of being podcast. I had a blast being on your podcast. Tell our audience how that project manifested, how it aligns with the work that you do, your philosophies. Tell us a little more.
Well, the funny story about that is that I never wanted to have a podcast. It was not on the radar. A good friend who's now transitioned, who I love very much, she encouraged me to have a podcast because I'd been on other people's podcasts. And she said, why don't you do your own? And I said, I'm fine being on other people's podcasts. And she said, I really think that it would be really good, a good service to add to what you're doing. And I said, okay, well, I'll try it. So I started off doing it once a month, would do panel discussions. And I was comfortable like having these deep conversations about topics like how do you overcome imposter syndrome and, things like that. And then our dear friend Portia, she encouraged me to get out of my comfort zone even further and do one-on-one interviews and like do a couple times a month. And so last July, I think was the first time I did my first one-on-one. And I had been, I'm very comfortable being on this side of the chair, not asking the questions, just answering the questions. But when I was in charge of like figuring out what questions to ask and where do I take the conversation, I was mortified. I was like terrified. And after I did the first one, it was Dr. Stephen Middleton, lovely, lovely human, very inspiring. I felt so good because I pushed myself out of my comfort zone and I did this scary thing. And so often we let our fears keep us from getting to that next level. And now I'll tell you, almost a year later, I love my show was booked out through October now. I have people reaching out and I love getting to talk to people and asking them questions and finding about, I've got people from all over the world that I get to talk to and explore deep, soulful conversations with them and share some of those things that we've learned on our journeys. And I love it. So I guess the lesson for me and for I want to share is do the scary thing, do the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable because you're going to grow from it and it's going to make you a bigger person. And you're not even going to realize like how much you love that thing, even though it scared you.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, I think our faith has to be greater than our fear.
Yes.
And fear is a good thing to have as long as it motivates us to action. But too much fear, debilitating fear, prevents us from moving forward and engaging in life meaningfully. So, but I'm glad you overcame that because you've had some great conversations. It's just like sitting around a campfire and having a conversation with two friends. That's how you do it. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. And you just do a great job with that. So I was honored to be on your podcast. I had a good time.
Yeah. I can't wait till your episode comes out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I will certainly share the heck out of it because it was just a great conversation, I think, overall. So,
Our conversation is always great.
yes, we've had some good ones outside of the podcast,
Yeah.
the podcast arena. And so and I suspect there's going to be plenty more down the road. So, so tell me about, I know you got a couple of future projects coming up. I know you mentioned one already, I think based on, if I'm correct, if my recall is correct, on the whole philosophy of Ubuntu. But what other projects do you have that you'd like to let our audience know about?
I'm creating some masterminds. I call it a circle because I feel like it's more inclusive, but it's kind of a mastermind. So for people that maybe are in transition And like it's from a loss, or they lost a job, or they're empty nester, or they just got divorced, or, something where they're in a crossroads in their life and they want to kind of remember what are things, because again, we get so caught up in doing the things that we have to do, the chores, the jobs, and we stop asking ourselves, what makes me happy? What brings me
Yes.
joy? What are those things that I innately are very, very good at that I don't do anymore because I don't have time? Like, I want people to remember who we were before the world told us who to be, and, dig back into your soul and say, what are those things? Because we have this one life, and I don't want to take it for granted. And I want to live the happiest, most service oriented life that I can live. So I want to help people with that, because I was that person, right? I was that person many years ago where my daughters were everything. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was PTA president. I was soccer coach, a Girl Scout leader. I did all these things. Like, my daughters were everything. When they went to college, I was like, who am I? What do I do now? I didn't have any idea. I didn't see any value that I brought to the world. Now I look back and I'm like, you're silly. Like, you did so much stuff, but
Mm.
I didn't see the value in it. So I want to help those people that may be in that place for whatever reason, come back to remembering why they're here and what can they add to this world to bring themselves joy and others.
Why is it that people don't see the value in what they do? Why do they either take it for granted or they just don't acknowledge it? What's been your experience with that?
I think because but much of the stuff that I did was volunteer, so I wasn't getting a paycheck for it. We often attach like titles and money and status, but those things are not value. Those, what we do, what we contribute. Again, I'm volunteered, so because I wasn't getting paid, I didn't see that I added value. But now I look back and I added value. My little sister, I met her, my little sister from Big Brothers Big Sisters. She was 7 when I first met her, and I would go see her once a week. And then she moved after about a year, so I couldn't like visit her regularly, but we still stayed in touch. She still reaches out to me sometimes. And her father passed away, I think in 2021. I
Mhm.
was like one of the first people she called, and I hadn't talked to her in years.
Yeah.
So clearly that has value.
Yeah, and we never know the impact that we truly make on a life or other lives. We may never know the true impact we made on humanity, before we die. But whatever we do, I think as long as it's positive in terms of the imprints and the footprints we're leaving, as long as they're positive, they're gonna multiply. And that positive imprint we left on somebody is inevitably going to pass down to somebody else.
Just
And
like Debbie did for me, and I will never be able to find her. I don't know how I would find her again. I don't know her last name, but she made a big difference in my life. And because of her, I'm making a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah.
So,
And, we get those transient angels that come into our lives for just a moment in time, but they came in at the moment that they were supposed to. We may never see them again, but
mhm.
the impact that they make on our lives is lasting. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it sounds like you're gonna be busy for quite a while.
Yes. Well, till I take my last breath, I will
Yeah.
never stop doing the work that I'm doing because I love it.
Yeah. And when we do what we love, it isn't work.
And
It becomes a calling.
yeah. Yes.
And for me, I'm not going to sit still. I'm going to keep working until I take my last breath, or until I'm cognitively or physically not able to do it anymore. Whatever comes first. But I'm grateful for every day that I get to wake up and do what I love doing. And I don't, as I get older, I don't take that for granted. So, and the cool part about it is when you commit to service, I meet other great people like you and Portia and Katie Gilbertson. We mentioned Katie prior to going on the air. So, I've met some really great people, but you tend to do that when your life is focused in a particular area. You meet like-minded individuals, and that's what we want.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
we want.
Yeah. When I was taking my life coaching certification, Matt Boggs said, and this stuck with me forever because it was the first time I heard it. The word vocation comes from the Latin root vocari, and vocari means you're a calling. And I always equated vocation to job, work, but a vocari is a calling. And
Mhm.
so I've made my vocation my calling.
Mhm. Yeah,
But it is.
yeah. It's exactly what it is. All right, I got a surprise question for you. Keeping yourself in mind, if you could construct the perfect day for yourself, not anybody else, but for yourself, what would that perfect day look like?
Oh, I would be on the beach. I would be on the beach with my dog and doing nothing but enjoying, just the waves and the smell and the sand. And I haven't been to the beach for a while, and I don't even live very far from the beach, which is ridiculous, but it would be like a tropical beach, maybe in Mexico, maybe in the Caribbean. And I would just be hanging out with my dogs, just enjoying and being grateful.
That sounds like a perfect day in anybody's book, especially if you're an animal lover. To just hang out with your four-legged friends and your companions and guides. That'd be a perfect day for me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should make that happen.
We should. All right, one of my last questions for you, and you've left us with a lot of good stuff, a lot of good wisdom today. But if you could leave our audience with one ultimate takeaway or what you want them to remember from our conversation today, what would that be?
I love this question. I always ask that at the end of my podcast also. Um, the thing that I always want to leave people with is you don't have to do big, huge, grand gestures to make a difference in the world, to be the change. Every interaction you have, whether it is walking by a stranger, it is at the grocery store, it's in traffic, be kind, acknowledge somebody, smile, compliment them if there's something to compliment, make a silly joke, make somebody laugh, make people feel seen and valued. And it costs no money, and it makes you feel good, and it makes the person feel good. And somebody witnessing it also then feels better.
Yeah. I mean, an ounce of kindness is going to go a long way. And I mean, when in doubt, be kind because you don't know what the other person has experienced or is going through. And simply a smile, simply saying hi, simply opening a door for them might have made their day or made them feel seen.
Absolutely. And that's the best gift you can give everybody, anybody.
Yeah, as people just want to be seen and acknowledged.
Yes.
That's all. They want to be noticed. My last question. People want to get in touch with you, follow your podcast, find out about your services you provide. And the Desire to Inspire Foundation? What's the best way for them to do that?
You can follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn at Dawn Airhart Witte. My website is secretsofbeing.com. If you go to secretsofbeing.com, it links to the Desire to Inspire Foundation, my merchandise line, my podcast, and everything.
And I'll make sure all of that information gets in the episode notes before we go live. So, Dawn, as always, I had a blast talking with you. Thank you for spending time with me today and bringing joy to my audience. And I know we're going to be doing this again.
Thank you so much, David. It fills my heart when we speak.
Me too. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.